Let us look now. She will probably have to sing as well. Our next. Hindi raw. Kayo raw kakanta. Let us look now at how a hubs and spokes model organizing the superstructure should be adopted at the national and regional levels in order to hasten the development of the country's knowledge capital. Please welcome the director of UP-CIFAL Philippines, Dr. Edna Estefania Co. Now, I looked up what CIFAL means. Actually, mahirap. It's in French, but there's a Spanish one that's easier to understand. Centro Internacional de Formación para Autoridad y Leaders. So it's a center for formation of people in authority and leaders. So the director is Dr. Edna Estefania Co.
Thank you, Toby. That's a tough act to follow after Professor Wu. And my presentation is going to be, I think, anticlimactic. My presentation is taken as from a public administration and policy perspective, and therefore it's a bit of a twist, but I see that it's a necessary twist if you want to disseminate and cascade science, technology, and innovations. So we call it the Natural Region as Governance Framework for Sustainable Development. And although I'm delivering it, this is a collaborative activity or study, preliminary one, by a group of people, academics, colleagues from the School of Urban and Regional Planning, from political science, from governance, from law, and also from the fisheries. So the term natural region has been adopted already even in the policy and planning discipline. Now, I'd like to look at the natural region in this way. Now, first, my presentation is going to be followed by the context and why this particular topic. There is, at the moment, in the Philippines, the proposal to redefine territories and regions and governance, basically. The change in charter and the change in the way we set up our governance. And the proposal even for federalism. What we're saying here is, from an academic point of view, we're not saying we're in favor of federalism, but there is an option from a science perspective on how we will deal with the challenges of change. So the context is that there is extreme localization at this point, and the scholar has said that the current extreme localization, which we have right now, is leading to a patchy, fragmented service delivery, especially where powers granted to local authorities outstrip the capacity of local authorities to deliver. We are also concerned with the uneven level of development across the regions in the country, so rich and on the other extreme, so poor. Extreme development, but also the other one is really majority would be the underdeveloped. Therefore, our challenge as to the academics is to reconfigure the architecture of governance beyond political considerations and representation, and to look for a framework which we call a biogeographic approach or a natural region approach to the administered space. And so we want to use we want to use science in this and employ also the capability and abilities of our scientists and experts. The natural region framework, if we capture it, is looking at, on the one hand, on the left-hand side, you see the yellow one, we take a look at the natural resource endowments. And partly, it's referring to watershed, forest lands, agriculture, river basin, marine and biodiversity, the mining areas. And you also look at the sociocultural layout of the society with hopefully the end goal of achieving poverty reduction, of even territorial development and empowered players at the local level. But in between the green and the orange, we say, what does it need in terms of framework and approach, but also what does it need in terms of practical efforts? To apply this, we also consider our inspiration in crafting the natural region framework. My organization, the CIFAL Philippines, is an affiliated center of the United Nations, which primarily promotes sustainable development goals. And we always are focused, we're almost really hooked into which particular kind of development goals are we achieving. But as a Filipino, we also try to consider the fundamental imperatives of the nation, which is to contribute to Philippine Development Plan 2017 and up to 2022. Having said this in mind, and we look at the natural region framework, and we say that among the 17 goals of the SDG, we contribute, hopefully this framework and this policy proposal contributes to specific SDGs, particularly SDG 9, which talks about industry innovation and infrastructure. And if you zero in, and if you're quite familiar with the SDGs, you go beyond the big headings of the goals, you look into the targets, and we refer to target 5. And that's why we say 9.5 says, we have to enhance the scientific research, upgrade technological capabilities of industrial sectors in all countries, in particular developing countries, such that by 2030, we encourage innovation and substantially increase the number of research and development workers per 1 million people and public and private research and development spending. So that's what we want to hit through this proposed framework. The other one is sustainable cities and communities. In 2050, prediction is population globally will triple, and it's the cities and the communities which will suffer really the consequences of this population growth. By doing this, we want to look at target 11.6, which says we should substantially increase the number of cities and human settlements, adopting and implementing integrated policies towards inclusion, resource efficiency, mitigation and adaptation to climate change, resilience to disasters, and implement our programs in line with the Sendai framework and the holistic disaster risk management at all levels. Furthermore, we also look, and I'm not going to read them here anymore, just flash it quickly, because I want to go to how we experiment the natural region. It's about also SDG 14.3, and the details are there. It's about also targeting 14.5, and it's referring to minding our marine resources and the life below water to be able to contribute to sustainable communities. It's also life on land, target 15.1, which is about encouraging a more sustainable terrestrial and ecosystem, and 15.9, which is integrating ecosystem and biodiversity values. Having all these universal goals and mandates, we also try to examine Philippine Development Plan of the current administration. And last night, with the Philippine President, we were trying to articulate how science and engineering and technology and the academics can contribute to the goals of Philippine development. And it says in the PDP, this particular goals, it's very apt because we say it's building up, enhancing connectivity, it's building up resilience. We want to maximize efficiency, and we also want to contribute to strategic infrastructure, sustainable integrated area development, and the cross-cutting strategy. Having said this, there is so much that the proposed framework can contribute to achieve the SDG and the PDP. The expected outcomes of our proposal is to have these three we want to see these three outcomes: an integrated regulatory development, protection and conservation of resources in a wider administered space, cannot be any more fragmented in very local spaces. Why? When typhoons hit us, they do not, typhoons are not political. They don't hit a particular town or city. They just hit, and it can be a whole province, it can be a whole region, and it can be a cluster of municipalities. So the option is to address the problem in a more holistic and integrated way. But the other one is to increase also revenues for the territories. I'm public ad, so I'm looking at places as revenues, source of revenues, which is really government resource. But effectively, this will also mean income for population and households, and the impact of service delivery. Now, the expected outcomes, therefore, of what we call the natural region or the shared rule hope to achieve reduced conflicts, greater income, beneficiaries, greater access to markets, connecting experts to public service domains so that our experts are not divorced from public service, and effectively plug the environmental hazards. And we want to see the growth of industries and innovations. Now, how did we do this? Having said that we want to do a natural region approach, we identified key factors. One is consider the watershed area, overlay this with the river basin area, and then on top of it, overlay this with the key biodiversity areas. We cannot achieve this without the initial work of our scientists and experts. Having said all three variables, we overlaid it and we come up with a map. And in the southern part of the country, we came up with a new architecture, which is not present now. We call it Western Mindanao. We zoom our lens. We tried to look further. Now, why Western Mindanao? And what is the characteristic of this new architecture? The new architecture brings together the island economy. They label it themselves. We are an island economy. Tawi-tawi, sulu, basilan. In other words, livelihood is based on water. Marine resources. But also ethnically, culturally, they are bonded together. These are the Tausug population. Naturally, as they exist now, the hub is Zamboanga City, hub of economy, hub of education. But also, if you bring together, based on our overlay of the three factors, we bring together Misamis Occidental, Zamboanga Norte, Sibugay Sur, and that forms, those are agricultural, rubber, coconut areas. And if we bring together, that's going to be a dynamic area. But the key there is probably, so what we did is to inventorize the natural resources. We also laid out the sociocultural, political factors. So we say which are going to be the generating revenues. Marine resources will generate income. You're a rich marine area. You're a rich agricultural area. So it's easy to imagine where your revenues will come from. We scope the social services. The irony is that you have the potential, but your social services, like that's a highly potential rich marine area. We discovered only 3 maritime schools, substandard. So how do you invest and enhance your marine resources in those areas? You have to invest in something more on education, training, and capacity building that will match the natural resources to enhance these. Identify potentials for income, trade, and tourism. Engineers, we need to build. The connectivity is really infrastructure. If you connect those territories, and the complaint is that they are so isolated, we need to build seaport, airport, and the road network and bring them over. But also socially, it's not an alienation of ethnic communities by themselves, but it's a mingling of different types of communities that can probably even result to reduce conflicts. So that's what we do. The implementation plans are there. We design a governance which is self-rule. The immediate social services will have to be retained at the city or municipality level because services should be delivered efficiently. But what we call shared rule should be performed by a subnational bigger than city or town because the functions need coordination. Disaster management, traffic management, solid waste management. This is, even tourism has to be shared because you don't go to a spot just to go to one tourist area. You want to optimize more to see. So we design a new governance on self-rule, shared rule. These were our initial activities. I was doing a lot of advocacy like crazy. Maybe nobody has yet, totally embraced this, but we keep on saying we need to communicate and advocate at our own level. We discussed this with the Senate Committee on Local Government through the amendment of the Local Government Code under Senator Sani Angara. And this is really like, you have to get a political buy-in to make this happen. We get invited to talks to political party groups like the NPC, which is the richest block of political people. And, we share this, and they're open about it because they're hesitant to go for or to go against the federal setup. We keep on talking to schools, like we had one talk with the presidents of what we call University Belt schools. I do inclusive business forums all over the country, doing it under CFAL, but we go around the country through the UP campuses discussing inclusive business, inclusive industry, and how we can do it together. And international conferences also. But we still need to do this some more. We need to do political buy-ins. We continue to promote it to higher education, to key people in government, even to Congress. We need to pilot. We had done the initial scoping, but we want to see a pilot by really looking at how we can implement it through an architecture of governance that is going to be supported not by a changed constitution, not by a federal system change, because that's very divisive, but what we can afford at this point. A big support from a president who is so strong-willed can just take an executive order or an administrative order or a special authority strengthening the powers of the subnational or the regional level of government. But we also need resources to pilot the administered space. Who will be the vanguards in this? I think all the scientists, the economists, the managers, the engineers, all of us, those in the university. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ko.